Good afternoon, everyone. Jason here. Today is August 3rd, and I wanted to go through another really good NQ trade with you here today. Of course, we talk a lot about our market maker levels, and I'm going to spend a few minutes here again talking with you about those today. But I also wanted to talk to you a little bit about reward to risk. One of the things that we spend a great deal of time on in our day trading chat room is talking about reward to risk ratios, and you're going to see when I get into this trade today. By the way, you can tell we had a really good day up here. Looking at the P&L, we had a very good day in here today. But going back to the reward to risk ratio idea, what you're going to see when after we get into this trade here, you're going to see that I'm down ticks heading into this trade. But again, the amount that I am down is really negligible compared to the trade that you're going to see me taking here. In fact, we took a $3,100 6.5, almost 6.5 to 1 reward to risk ratio trade in front of a live day trading audience in our chat room here today. One of the main components that allows us to take these really large reward to risk ratio type trades are our market maker levels. And so what I'm going to do here right now is this chart's a little bit cluttered, so I'm going to come over here and we're going to take a look at these market maker levels by themselves. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off the after the pit open levels, and we're going to take a look at what the overnight structure points are. Now again, just as a refresher, the market maker levels are called market maker levels because they were taught to me by a veteran floor trader, and the reason why they work is they are taking previous days, price, and time action and projecting that forward into the next day's trading session. And as you can see here in the overnight structure, this, by the way, is settlement, this price, this heavy orange line. You can see the market opens up, comes down into the ETH signal in the overnight structure, rallies up to the ETH mid, comes back into the open, and then right here after the open is when these RTH session levels form. And you can see right here, market rallies all the way up into this RTH target. Now what you're going to see me do here today when we get into this trade is we have what we call zones of influence. And as you know, support and resistance is less about to the tick precision and more about a zone of influence around a particular level. Now on the NQ is a little bit more active and the swings are a little bit bigger. And so we take a little bit bigger zone of influence around that level than we do, let's say, the CL or the ES. But for the sake of this discussion, the market rallies all the way up into this RTH target. And if you look at the delta here, the delta had been rallying in the overnight session, meaning that the aggressive buyers were coming in. And then on this particular bar, you can see that we had this climax on the delta here, and then the delta began to roll over. Now, it was on this bar where the delta began to drop. We came all the way up into the RTH target level, and that happened to be the high for that particular period. And then you can kind of see these shaded areas around the levels here. Well, this happens to be, again, the zone of influence. And so what I did today on this particular trade is we noticed the delta was coming down here, meaning that the aggressive buyers were starting to step in. We had found resistance at the RTH target. And I had a previous high right up at this zone of influence at 98.5. Market rallies up into the RTH target, comes down, breaks back into this zone of influence, and that's where I was looking to get short. So you had the zone of influence around this resistance level. You had this zone of influence, not a correction, you had the exact level up here get hit to the tick, and then the market begins this aggressive sell-off, and we were able to ride this down 2 lots for almost 79 NQ points times 2 lots. And again, we talk about reward to risk ratios, and one of the reasons that I'm able to take these large reward to risk ratio type trades is because I am very comfortable with the way that these levels work, meaning that I have studied these levels for such a long time that I have a great deal of confidence in the way that they perform. And this allowed me to get in up here when the delta began to turn and the aggressive sellers began to step in. and we were able to ride it all the way down with a trail stop following all the way down behind it. And so again, as we look back here today, yeah, you could turn off. Once you run out of these RTH session levels, you can go back into the overnight structure points, and you can see we came right down into the overnight structure point within a couple of ticks, definitely well within the zone of influence here. And then as we sit here today, like stairs on a ladder, steps on a ladder, the market has just begun to rally and kind of retrace all the way back up through your structure points, all the way into the ETH upper boundary signal up above, where we have been bouncing through around that ETH mid. But again, for our purposes here today in this video, you're going to see the market come in. Delta had been rallying all the way to get right up into the RTH target. That's where the market, the aggressive sellers begin to come in. And by the way, that's how you know your support and resistance is accurate. When the market begins to respond around that level like it did here, the sellers, aggressive sellers, began to come in. We broke into the zone of influence and down through this previous high, and that was pretty much all it took for us to get on board, and we rode this down for almost 80 NQ points times 2 lots, which ended up being a $3,150 NQ trade. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to let you see this trade. The trade itself is about 13 minutes long. It was a very quick move. I'm going to show you where we get in, and then I'm going to cut the trade down into pieces. I'm going to speed it up a little bit, put some music behind it so that you can get the gist of how we manage that trade, and then you'll be able to see where it is that we took profit. Now, one thing again I want you to notice as you go through this is that we are down ticks going into this, right? But again, because our reward to ratios are well in line with what you would want to have, in this case it was almost 6.5 to 1, then those small losing trades that you take coming into this really have not a ton of bearing when you compare it to the reward that we were able to get on this trade. So with all that being said, I'm going to let you watch this OTG trade of the day. The top of the zone of influence there is 98.5. So we're going to look at 98.5 on the short here. On the NQ, one time here, that's the top of the zone of influence on the RTH signal, and I am in there at 98.5. We're going to bring this down to 11, and the target underneath is that RTH signal.